Hey, and welcome to the Freddie Media live webinar. My name's Jon Frederick. I'm the founder and CEO of Freddie Media. Today, we're going to be discussing about how to build your executive brand and voice through social media and just general publishing for your business. I'm joined today by my friend and client, Doug Horner. You know him as Bens and Bowties. I know him as my favorite person in media, my favorite person on the Freddie Media roster, and really somebody who, when Freddie Media signed Doug, I consider it to be a huge inflection point in our business. And Doug's been a pleasure to work with, a great guy to learn from, probably my favorite executive in the entire automotive industry. And I'm not exaggerating. And Doug, I'd like to hand it to you and allow you to introduce yourself to anybody that's on the live stream. But I'm just so thankful to work with Doug. And Doug, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, John. Wow, that's really high praise. I guess I'll make sure to remind Russ and George of all of these comments every time I can. But so my name is Doug Horner, and I work for Mercedes-Benz in North Olmsted. I'm the general sales manager there, and I've been with Mercedes-Benz for 15 years now, but at North Olmsted for 9 years. And about a little over a year ago, I started filming just what goes on in the dealership, and most specifically in my office, in my sales office. So when the sales team comes to me to talk through deals or get some advice on how to approach a situation with a client, we talk it through, and I just turn the camera on, and hopefully something interesting happens, and then we can post it. And it's been really fun because it allows every day to be even more exciting than it already was. But I think that we are educating car consumers and car dealers and hopefully just car enthusiasts on the fact that it's possible that you can sell cars in a very transparent way, a fun way, a quick, simple, and easy way, and try to erase that stigma that the industry has rightfully earned, unfortunately, from years of bad behavior. But what we want to do is show people that it doesn't have to be that way.
So, Doug, you started posting on social media because you're a leader within the four walls of a business. And you
Yeah.
had a thesis that unless you did it, your employees wouldn't do it. So, talk
Yeah.
to me about the cold start, you telling everybody you work with, I'm going to start doing content. How was that greeted? And then talk to me about how long did it take for you to get traction, then for you to get buy in from your coworkers? When did everyone stop laughing at you?
Yeah. So it was pretty funny at first. I think everybody was giving me a hard time because, and I'll back up quickly. I had been talking about this for months and months, trying to get my team to start using social media as a tool to reach an audience. And I was always met with, yeah, like everyone got it, but nobody was really willing to do it. And everybody always had a million excuses as to why, I don't look good today, or I want to lose some weight first, or I don't like the shirt I'm wearing, or the weather's not good, right? There was always some reason why it was going to be tomorrow, right? And then finally it got to the point where I was like, all right, lead by example, right? I've always told my team that I'm never going to ask you to do something that I wouldn't be willing to do myself. And so I figured someone's got to do this. I guess it'll be me. And it was pretty amusing at first because, unlike George, for example, who has a camera guy that's following him around all day and is sort of at the ready and just literally filming everything as it happens, for me, the way it began was I just had my phone. That was it. And so if somebody walked into my office to talk about a deal, they'd sit down, they'd start talking, and I'd literally have to look at them and go like, oh, just one sec, right? And I'd get my phone out and I'd lean it up against my computer and turn on the camera, and then I'd be like, all right, go. And they would laugh and just, because they're starting to talk, and I'm asking them to stop, and then they go again. But I would say pretty quickly they stopped finding it amusing, and they just they would walk in and be like, do you need to get your camera set up real quick? Like, they started knowing how it was going to go.
You remember when you were a
And
young salesperson and if you didn't have the stock number, the model number, like the address of the customer, the sales manager would send you back to the desk. It's like
right,
they learned that, except you got to wait for Doug's camera to be turned on.
exactly. So they figured it out pretty quick, and I would say within the first week, a couple of the videos started to get some engagement, and then about maybe 3 weeks in, I had my first video that I would say went viral,
Yeah.
and it was off to the races from there.
Doug, I think that people like you because you're authoritative, you're an executive, you run a business, but also you're almost like a throwback to a bygone era. I mean, you're a
Mhm.
little bit like America's dad. You're somebody with great integrity. I've seen your DMs before where sometimes people are just like, man, Doug, I'm just glad there's still guys like you out there.
Right. Yeah. It's those are the messages that I love to get, where it's people that maybe were in the car business at one point in their lives and now they're not anymore. Or and they say, this is the way that I used to do it. I'm glad to see there's dealers that still do. Or better yet, people that reach out and say, I didn't know that this was possible. I didn't know that you could have this kind of experience with a dealership, which it breaks my heart a little bit. But I also love it at the same time, because I see it as an opportunity to show people that you might have to go out of your comfort zone a little bit and do business maybe a town over or a state over. But there are good dealers out there that legitimately do care about you having a good experience.
You're a great representation of your business, Mercedes-Benz of North Olmsted. And when I watch Doug's content, I go, man, I wish Doug was my manager when I was selling cars. So, as a car guy, I ingest your content and I think of it as it pertains to the industry. Not everybody knows that I was an in store car guy for about a decade. But, Doug, when you started doing this, you just wanted to sell more cars, right?
Yeah.
And I think that getting into something with those sort of golden intentions, you never thought that you would really be famous. You never thought that this could lead to a lucrative media career where perhaps like you're a speaker at NADA on stage. You were here to move the needle on your business. Tell us a little bit about that and how you were shocked to find that it had industry value as well.
Yeah, the beginning goal 100% was, we're kind of, I would say the COVID era had passed. Inventory was starting to normalize. Car shoppers were taking their time again, right? Which is all good, right? Because we were getting back to a normal as opposed to the madness that was COVID. And we needed to figure out, how do we get back to sales volumes that we were doing before COVID. And it just seemed like we've got to do something differently, right? They say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So if our normal marketing channels are yielding us X results and our normal outreach is yielding us Y, then we've got to do something totally different. And that's where it was born from. But yeah, it was two things. One, yeah, we wanted to sell more cars. Absolutely. I'm going to be 100% honest with you about that. But two, what made me, I like most people, probably like you as well, I didn't aspire growing up to be in the car business. I sort of fell into it one way or another.
Yep.
And what made me stay in it was, I loved it. I loved how every day was different. I loved all the people that I could meet. But I very quickly looked around and thought, I can provide a better experience than most dealers are. I want to be that guy. I want to show people that, like, car salesmen can be cool dudes that take care of people and don't try to rip people off and provide a great experience. And so that has fueled me forever. And in the past, it used to be, I have to hope that you happen upon our store, either just walking through the door, calling in, internet lead, whatever. And then I have to prove to you that we're going to take care of you. But I was like, with social media, I can just show people every day that that's how it's going to be. And so that was kind of the other side of it, was that I can show people all at the same time, as opposed to once, one-on-one.
You've
And
stumbled upon the most high leverage marketing device of all time. It's
totally.
one to many, it's instantaneous, it's authentic. And I really, of course, there's demand gen. If you look at Doug has walked me through the math of the amount of leads that are generated from his social media, and I'd put the price on that at probably $300,000 a month in what would otherwise be paid advertising.
Mhm.
However, I think what's even better is the reputation management of it all. If you were to go buy a car at Mercedes-Benz of North Olmsted, the first thing that's going to pop up is Doug, his content, the way he treats people, his professionalism. And additionally, I think there's other spillover effects like recruiting. I bet people are knocking down the door to work for you, and employee engagement. I just think when you start doing content for your business, instead of this backstabby, I'm going to beat the other guy, you instill an arms race of creativity where I'm
Yeah.
going to work with you. I'm going to bounce an idea off my coworker. We're going to get a laugh about it. Then he's going to refine it. And then before you know it, we're walking out on the lot doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fun. I think there were a couple of people on the sales team that maybe were a little apprehensive at first, and now it's fun for them to be included, and they like to kind of engage in the comments and see how people react to their side of the story. But it's overall, it's been just incredible. It's been so fun to put eyeballs on the dealership in this unique way, and the people that we've met, the relationships that we've formed, the amount of business that we've been able to bring into the store. It's created all new problems for us, which are the good problems, which is, wow, now we need to hire more people to be able to handle our current book of business, right? Because we can't forget about that. But then also all of the new leads that are coming in because they've seen us online and they want to do business with us from all over the country.
Doug, do you know, I feel this way. Let me know if you feel the same way. When we talk dealership, it's tier three. The automotive industry has tiers.
Yep.
Tier one is OEMs, Mercedes, Ford, Toyota, whatever. Tier two is your region, Northeast Florida Chevy dealers. Tier three is the dealership. It has a touch of a little brother attitude. We didn't work for the OEMs. Doug and I did go to college, but you don't really have to work at a car dealership. I'd also love to hear from you, Doug, whether you feel like you wasted your degree or anything like that. But, dealership people carry a touch of a chip on their shoulder because we work the hours, we're at the point of sale, we move the deal forward. And I think if there's anything I'm proud to have done throughout my career is shine a light on how important dealerships are, how important the people at the dealerships are, the work they put in, the quality of person they are. And I think whether it's you, Russ Flips Whips, George Saliba, all the guys moving merch, Rafi Mush, everybody we've ever worked with, dealer plate guy, they're such great ambassadors. They're better ambassadors for the industry than I ever was. Yossi Levy. And I love the movement. I'm proud to be a part of it. And Doug, do you feel the chip on your shoulder being a dealer guy? I remember 3 years into my dealership career going, man, I went to college. I could be selling pharmaceutical, or I could be a software sales guy or whatever. Instead, I'm at this dealership. Do you carry the chip on your shoulder? Now I feel blessed to have learned the world's greatest industry. But do you carry the chip on your shoulder? Did you ever feel that way? Was there a moment where you felt like you wasted the degree?
Oh yeah. I mean, look, when I graduated from Ohio State in 2010. So at that time, the economy was still in recovery mode from the housing crisis. And even though there weren't a lot of great opportunities available, at first I felt a little embarrassed to say to people, I sell cars.
Right.
Right. And I'll admit that, because I think even then it just carried with it a stigma like, oh, great, this guy, right?
Yeah.
Gonna try to, rip me off or whatever. And I hated that, right? I really did. But it made me think, like, what was the point of going to college to then just get into car sales? It did feel like a waste. But I look back, and I was an economics major. That major has served me incredibly well in what I do every day, because the just working in a car dealership, especially if you're in management, I mean, it is very much like running a business every day, where you're dealing with, there's the leadership aspect of having a team. You've got the most basic economic concepts like supply and demand, and you've got, various price points and inventory levels that you have to manage. It's, there's the advertising portion of it. I mean, there's so many facets of it. It truly is a fascinating business to be in. And I quickly learned that, what, my education has definitely helped me here. I would agree with you. It's not required. You don't have to go to college to be successful in the car business. But I look back now and I don't feel like I wasted my college education. But in the beginning there, I did feel like I had to prove myself to people, because I had settled for the car business with a college degree, and that didn't feel good at the time. But now I'm like, well, it gave me a head start.
There's no business where you'll be in charge of a bigger P&L faster than the car business. Doug, what do you say we bore some people with a slideshow and talk about how you and I have both built a voice for ourselves within our industry? Mine's a tenth of yours, but I would even say my dinky little LinkedIn following has, is good for about 200 grand a month worth of deal value, and yours has brought so much good to yourself. Why don't we explain to everybody who's viewing today kind of how we did it and some tactics they can use in order to drive results for their own business?
Yeah.
So I'll go into it, guys. I'm the boring side of the table today, but my name's Jon Frederick. 10 years I worked the desk at a big Toyota store. Started as a salesman, worked my way up, really enjoyed the business. I became a vendor. I worked for Full Path, wonderful company. There I am at some Brian Pash marketing event, hoping some giant dealer like Brett Morgan stops by and buys something from me. And I had a cool turning point in my life where at Full Path, car dealership guy mentioned Full Path in a tweet when he was a little nascent, a little young. The whole thing wasn't formed yet. And I was the beneficiary from inbound demand, something I thought was never possible. Guys like Doug were calling me, asking me to buy a product. Light went off in my head, and I haven't looked back. Left car dealership guy 14 months ago, founded Freddie Media, where we manage talent with guys like Doug, Ben, George Saliba, Russ Flips Whips, people like that. At Freddie Media, we manage large campaigns. We work with great clients like Adobe or Pennzoil, Amazon, Bumper.com, Capital One. I'm thankful for all the clients we have. Great creators as well, like Chris Kerner. And all we're here to talk about today is what we've learned from those guys. I know nothing. I've just been lucky enough to hang out with some really great people like Ben's and Bowties. The reason this matters, and I think Doug is proof of it, is 75% of B2B buyers use social media to make a decision. So, Doug, did you anticipate that? That's when somebody's shopping inventory management software or a CRM for their dealership, that they cared which one you were using?
I mean, not at first, but I've gotten very into the principles of persuasion, and one of them is social proof. And it just very clearly states, and this is independent of social media, that human beings, when they are uncertain themselves, look to what others are already doing to influence their decision. So the best example I can give you is we're sitting at dinner, right? You and I'm looking at this menu. I can't figure out what I want. So I'm like, John, what are you having? Steak? All right. You know what? That sounds good. I'll have steak. It's just the easier thing to do. So it makes total sense to me now.
Yeah. And then 63% of people trust influencers more than the brands. How do you feel about lending your brand when somebody decides to work with you? You're doing a wonderful campaign right now with Dealer DMV and Ship Your Car Now, two brands that we're comfortable to work with because we're kind of friends with the guys at that company. But talk about how you thread the needle of promoting a company while you're authentically showing a use case, because for you, that's something that's really important. You use the products, you ensure they're good products. How do you verify and then persuade?
Well, and so I told you from the very beginning when we started working together that for me, I've got to, if I'm going to talk about anything at all, I have to believe in it, right? So if it's something that I see value in, or more specifically, something that gives me value on a daily basis, then I'll have no problem singing its praises. I don't have the ability, for better or for worse, to go on and just talk about a product for a paycheck that I have no interest in or I don't believe in, right? I can't do that. So these companies that we work with at the dealership that provide a service to us and do a great job, of course, I'll talk about them positively all the time.
Savannah and I, this is not pertaining to Doug, but Savannah and I reference this as the Zoolander problem, where they can't act. Like, influencers have to believe in it. And when Russ Flips Whips tells me, I can't do that, I can't talk about that, I don't use it. And I say, do what Colin Farrell does when he promotes a cologne. Pretend. But unfortunately, that's not how it works in influencer marketing. I have to sell the brand, then I have to sell the creator. So guys, if you're looking out there and you're wondering, what does this work? How do we calculate ROI on influencer marketing? Paying to be on social media, is it worth it? I like to look at it as this inverted funnel. Impressions are your awareness. When you see the little thing on LinkedIn, how many impressions you got, that's top of funnel awareness. Downstream of that is engagements, likes, shares, clicks. Okay. And generally, those are worth about $3 each. Then earned media value. If you're a brand, especially a B2B brand, you should know your customer acquisition cost. So a lot of brands, B2B, will put a $30 to $50 CPM either on any medium. It's medium agnostic, newsletter, social media, whatever you got. B2B, your earned media value relative to impressions or clicks or whatever, it's worth about $30 to $50 for every 1,000 impressions. And then conversions are where it's at. So if Doug can talk about something that gets somebody to fill out a form, make an action, book an appointment with a salesperson, or just simply sign up, that's the gold. And I think, with AI implementation right now, guys, your funnel more than ever can be self-serving. Everybody thinks that we need to book to a demo, but I would say with the Russ Flips Whips training, we wake up in the morning to just dealers that signed up for it. And I would almost encourage software companies to allow yourself for a dealer self-serving platform. Doug, have you ever just signed up for a product without taking a demo?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everybody feels like they need to put a real savvy sales guy in there, but I think that the funnel now, especially with qualification, you can really just sell things to businesses. So going all in on B2B content involves taking risks. And Doug, let me know if you think this is funny. So
Okay.
it's the meme of, I think his name's Kendall from Succession.
Yep.
And I sell things to people whose dads generally owned a dealership. So I'm up one night and coming up with funny ideas with Russ. We're texting back and forth, and I think of a meme. And I think, Kendall from Succession, where he says, "Do you want to call your dad?" When the deal for Royco goes under, he tells the VC, or he tells the other buyer, "Do you want to call your dad?" So it's kind of funny, like business with nepotism.
Yeah.
And then so I tag that on LinkedIn when an NADA grad says no to my pitch. So I think it's good because it's kind of, I'm the idiot, I'm the Kendall, but then it's tying in the nepotism that's innately tied to our industry. That's worth poking fun at. So if you were to sell something to an industry filled with NADA grads that are effectively the decision maker, was I an idiot to post that?
I mean, I think that it got a lot of engagement. It might have ruffled a few feathers, but sometimes that's the most effective way to reach an audience. I mean, social media is the people that are engaging with social media love a bit of controversy. And so if everyone agrees with every single thing all the time, your message will only go so far, right? And I remember when you posted that, and I remember you wondering if it was a mistake to do it. But I think that, look, if you're part of a dealership family that has multi generations,
Yeah.
I think it's only fair that you are understanding of the way that might be looked at by some, right?
Yeah. And, to be fair, I don't have axes to grind. I kind of love everybody. So I'm really just going for things that are actually funny. And this resulted in more texts from dealers than anything I've ever posted. In fact, I sold a lot of things from this. So wade into controversy. If it's actually funny, I sent this to a bunch of creators before I posted it. I sent it to a few dealer owners before I posted it. And it was a unanimous, hell yeah, go for it. This is the sort of risks I depend on you to take. And then the other thing I'd encourage you guys to do is to post polls. Polls are hacks, and they're a great way for you to wade into something that may be controversial or for you to express an expertise that you may have. So here's a poll I ran that said, is wholesale a profit opportunity? Or if you're as a franchise dealer, or if you're making too much money on wholesale, is that a red flag? So Doug, why is that relevant? Why should I post something like that? Am I showing off my industry expertise as a credible person by posting that?
Yeah, I think that's one of the most hotly debated topics internally in the industry is how do you treat wholesale? And every dealership has a different view on it. Some of them treat it like a profit center. Others look at it like lost opportunity. It really is like, having been around it and having been in management now for over 10 years, I can tell you that I've only been at a few dealerships, but no one can agree on how wholesale should be best utilized. And so I think that that's the kind of topic that is going to get a lot of engagement and a lot of conversation going.
Then another thing, you just have to be ready to go. I mean, Russ Flips Whips walked up to me when we were training the Van Horn Auto Group in Wisconsin and said, John, tell everybody what you're doing right here. And I think this is what we recorded. Day 2 with the Van Horn Auto Group. We've had an awesome time having Russ Flips Whips here training with their salespeople. And also it's cool to see the executive. So that video, although it has a good edit, I mean, it did like 50,000 views, which is astronomical for me. And it was just purely Russ telling me what to do. So I would say if you're sitting there waiting on a script, just talk, dude. Just say what's going on. And I think you're the king of that, Doug. I mean, who does it better than Doug? Just, tell everybody how good it's been just explaining what you do every day.
Yeah, I mean, it's been fun for me. I think that one of the reasons that I had thought about social media for a little while before I started doing it, but one of the reasons that I talked myself out of it the first few times, like so many of us do, was looking at somebody like Russ, who has these clever little skits, and thinking, man, I just don't know if I can be that creative all the time, right? If I can come up with topics to talk about every day. And so when I then heard an interview that George did actually on the Car Dealership Guy podcast, and he basically in so many words said, I hired a camera guy to just follow me around and film me doing my job every day. I thought, well, that I can do. I'll just film what's already happening, and then we'll see if anything interesting is in there. Oh, apologize. But and so that was a great way for me to get into making content, because I didn't have to sit down and script out something. I just record the interactions that are already happening in the dealership.
Something that's worked really well for me is sharing tips and tricks. How do I do business? Like this thing on the left is effectively every morning I open up HubSpot and I see who opened up my thank you email or my meeting recap email from the day before. If they opened it 3 times, that's a heat map for me to call in the moment and just see if I can close the deal. Because if they're opening it a bunch, they're probably going to buy. And then additionally, taking market insight from something like Bloomberg News, discussing it on LinkedIn, borrowing somebody else's hard work and research, putting my little spin on it. And then that tends to do really well. And I lean into humor, Doug. I mean, man, when you throw a high kick as you're walking out to the lot, I'm always proud of you when you do that. But this was,
right.
The Walt Goggins shocked face when another marketing manager shows me their personal social media. I've seen some horrific things. It's basically like watching somebody's slideshow from a family vacation. But, I think it was an appropriate meme. And, HubSpot does a good job.
Show up as you are. You don't need to be overly polished or overly scripted. People like it when you're like just a real person.
Yeah, I mean, that was like a great example of a brand like HubSpot saying authenticity wins. So we're in a t-shirt right now. This was unthinkable, 8 years ago for like a guy who runs a business. We were in a t-shirt in one of these things. But, Doug, tell us about being authentic, how that's benefited you.
Yeah, I think that people can tell when something is overly polished and scripted. People prefer to watch things they can identify with. And I think that all of us have seen social media that is very clearly orchestrated and like professionally shot. And it almost looks like you're watching like a short film, and it just doesn't feel real, and it's hard to connect with it. So I think that when you're authentic, when it's a little bit sloppy, when it is real, people like it more because they can identify with it more.
That being said, get your act together and professionalize a little bit in terms of your page. So have a link in bio, funnel back to something that provides value, like a newsletter. Like don't funnel to your demo page. That's a bit gauche. And then have your highlights set up correctly. There's little bubbles. Prioritize engagement, like reply to comments. Have clean text hooks. Like the text hook you should have no matter what you do for a living. Are you a physician, a car salesman, whatever? Look at Doug's videos. You go white background, black text. And then a text hook should be, when you're coming up with a text hook, you're invoking an emotion. You're thinking emoji. Does this make me LOL? Does this make me sad? Does this make me angry? If it doesn't emotion you, then it's not a hook. Get rid of it. And then speak to your industry. I think being able to speak dealer has been, the thing that's made me all the money I've ever made in my life. Not that it's a ton, but I'm so thankful that I know an industry. So if you know an industry, espouse that and share it. And vertical short form video is supposed to be shot like that. If you're shooting it like that, you're missing the boat. And, You don't have to overly produce graphic images. In fact, sometimes it backfires. Doug, have you ever like experimented with thinking you're, Steven Spielberg and overproducing content and then going, well, that wasn't worth it?
Yeah, I mean, only a few times before that experiment was over with, but there was maybe one or two videos that had some filters or some AI enhancements to them and a couple of images, maybe for some YouTube thumbnails that were a bit overly enhanced, and people can spot it right away and they'll call it out. And a lot of times they'll be like, this is weird, or this almost seems fake.
Right. And then let's talk about aesthetics. I know that I look like a slob right now. George Saliba saw my haircut this morning and suggested I wear a hat. But aesthetics draw people in. And on the bottom left is a friend of ours, Christina Roki.
Yeah.
And, people love watching Christina's content. First of all, she's like a great videographer. She's very well put together. Like, she thinks about her outfits when she's going on there. Doug, you wear a bow tie every day. What's that all about?
Yeah, the bow tie was just kind of a happy accident. I started wearing it all the way back in 2014. And the reason was simply that I had to learn how to tie one to be in a wedding. And I was a salesman at the time. And I thought, well, maybe if I start, I was at a Mercedes-Benz dealership. So it was suit and tie every day. That was the dress code. So I figured I'll just start wearing bow ties, because nobody in Ohio really wears bow ties. And that could just be like a little thing for, if people forget my name, maybe they'll remember that. That's kind of what the mindset was at the time. And then fast forward all the way to 11 years later, and I've just been wearing them ever since. It's just been kind of like a fun thing that not many people do, at least not in this part of the world. And so I'll put it this way. I had to wear a necktie every day, right? Almost never did anybody say anything about the necktie. They might just say, oh, I like your suit, or you look nice, whatever. But the bow tie, almost at least once a day, if not more, will get a comment of some kind where somebody sees it, they're not expecting it, and they'll be like, ooh, I like your tie, right?
Doug, were you a prep school kid? I'm a proud prep school kid. The headmaster wore a bow tie every day. I think that's why you and I get along, is we're both the prep school kids that made it in the car business. But
yeah, exactly.
The bottom line, guys, is like, if it's not beautiful, eye-catching, or funny, or insightful, then you probably shouldn't be posting it. So those are your three options: be good looking, be funny, or be insightful. I think Russ Flips Whips is funny. He's a funny guy. He texted me something this morning and said, send this to Taco Bell. And it like knocked me on, my butt laughing. But Doug, you're insightful. We're watching you make deals, and through that, we're learning how to buy a car, how to operate a car dealership. But are you really you're not like up all night reading industry reports. You're just going about your business. You're like insight through osmosis. So talk about, your attempts at humor, your attempts at insight. Russ thinks that humor is good for growth and insight's good for conversion and following. What's your take on those two things?
Yeah, I think that humor, a lot of times, humor is always consistent. In social media, a lot of us go there for sort of a release to kind of just unwind and have a laugh. And so humor will always be a draw. I think a lot of people end up on social media sometimes and inadvertently will find something interesting that is not funny at all, is relatively serious, or maybe it's just following somebody doing a project of some kind. And before you know it, you're just like sucked into it and you want to learn more about it. You want to know more about how it's going to go. So it's like, I don't know that people necessarily seek that out on social media, but they often do find it incredibly interesting. So, I mean, I would agree with Russ. I think that humor is important. I think one of the things that just because of the style of my content, a lot of people think that I'm like 100% serious, like all the time. And I get that. A lot of what we do is serious, but we also like to have a lot of fun. Not all of that ends up on camera. And when I do a video where I'm being a little bit more silly, it tends to do well, because people that maybe have been watching me for a while are kind of like, what's Doug doing walking around doing high kicks?
I know. The people
outside.
Who think you're serious all the time, they haven't seen your high kicks, brother.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk about brand content examples, consumer facing. You're better at this than me. I don't think I've ever sold anything consumer facing through social media. We just started working with this guy, Travis Chambers, who's a bit of a genius. He built these things in Utah that look like the the place in Star Wars. So Travis built these things out of like cool material in the middle of the desert, and it's like a glamping concept.
Okay.
And because it's so novel and interesting, he's booked out for the year. He can't go there. Everybody's bought it already. And I mean, the
Yeah.
cool part about hospitality booking out in advance is like that's money in the bank. So, you know, Doug, tell me about your B2C strategies, how you incorporate visual hooks or good video concepts. Are they polished or, anchor personality? What wins?
Yeah, so I think in the industry that I'm in, the car is the star, right? I mean, people are often there. Americans in general, and not just Americans, people all over the world, but especially Americans have a love affair with cars. People love them, even if it's just a little bit. So when you have an exciting new product and you show it off, there are going to be people there will always be people that show up for that because they want to see the latest and greatest and they want to know what's available, what you have, what's new, what's cool. So when I'm doing content, if I'm out of my office, right, if I'm not sitting at the desk, then I'm probably doing something that's more B2C where I'm showing our potential clients, hey, these are the cars that we have, right? Here's the different sizes. This is what interior options and colors, exterior colors are available, and just talking about the cars themselves. And that there will always be people that show up for that.
All right, Doug, we took Freddie Media employee Francie Stanley and cut a vehicle review with a little bit of principles from you and Russ Flips Whips. Russ says always obfuscate the vehicle and do a walk around like this. So let's look at it, give it a rating. How do you think she did?
When people think of luxury cars, they think of either BMW or Mercedes. What I have behind me might be better than both of them. Here's 3 things that you just have to see about this car. This 8-way adjustable seat is just way more comfortable than Mercedes and BMW. There's actually space for all my stuff. And my dog loves the back seat. Did you guess that it was a Volvo?
What do you think the way she did that, like hiding the vehicle and then waiting for the reveal at the end being a Volvo? Is that like too much work? Is that too kitschy? What do you think?
No, I think it's genius. I actually remember when that video originally went out. It happened across my feed, and I thought it was very clever because you're immediately talking about 2 brands that people identify with luxury cars, and then you've got this mystery car behind you that you don't know what it is. So I think that is extremely clever in the sense that people love to wait, they love to guess what it's going to be. They want to wait till the end to figure out what it's going to be. That's why like lists do so well, like top 3s, top 5s, top 10s.
Here's the top 3, and the third one's the best. So you have to like hang around to see it, because if people hang around the content, it'll get served more and more and more. So this ability to obfuscate something can play out really well in getting you more views and shares and all of that.
Totally. You've got to be thinking, I've got about like 1.5 seconds to maybe capture somebody's interest before they mindlessly scroll. So if you've got a little bit of a surprise, they're more likely to stick around.
Doug, let me know your favorite consumer corporate brand on social media, but I'm liking Slate nowadays. That's that cheap truck, Jeff Bezos. I was on the list back when it was $20,000. Then I think we got rid of the EV tax credit, and now it's 27. I spent that money on a boat. So Slate is pretty cool. They hired a lot of people to do fake commercials. They're killing it in consumer social media. Do you have any examples, Doug, or what do you think of Slate?
I like Slate stuff a lot. The example that I always come back to, because I think that they're just killing it and I love the story, is Amalfi Private Jets.
Yeah.
And
everybody says I should emulate that guy, like pretend I'm making a deal and then like this and that. But
right.
I mean, I'm not in the luxury space, but I am high strung. Do you think I should do that?
You should. Look, I mean, they have stumbled on a formula that wins, right? And I understand why it works. It's he essentially created a company out of nothing and has blown it up entirely off the back of an extremely clever social media strategy, which is taking the clients of his product and putting them in these kind of fake scenarios that are pretty humorous and get people riled up. And then now it's somewhat of a TV show, right? You're sort of watching life at Amalfi headquarters every day through their social media, and I think that it's been genius.
Yeah, I wonder if he's even still doing the transactions or just brokering those leads to people below him. He probably has some sort of pyramid scheme. But let's talk about people that have really succeeded on social media, like to kind of astronomical levels, starting with Freddie Media creator Chris Kerner, one of my good friends. Again, just like Doug, a real inflection point in Freddie Media. We signed Chris Kerner. He was smaller than he was now, had about 200,000 followers. And I mean, if you guys could see the way Chris strategically orients himself towards a growth on social media, the way he always does hooks, the way he provides insight, the way, I mean, he tracks his growth to the point where he knows how many followers he's adding every day on his newsletter. If you're not doing a newsletter, Chris's is a great one to emulate, but newsletters are great because you really own that audience and you can kind of set your clock to a 50% open rate if you're doing things about right. And Chris is somebody to observe his growth has been amazing. And I think he's like a top 5 episode ever on My First Million, which I believe to be the most consequential business podcast in the world. So if you don't follow Chris Kerner, follow Chris Kerner. And then additionally, something a little more pertinent to you, Doug, is our friend Alex Lawrence at EV Auto. And, you know, talk about how you guys are similar. And then I believe Alex is building the next big dealer group off of his presence on social media.
Yeah. I love Alex. He's such a good guy, and I love his story. You know, for those who don't know him, he was basically a college professor. I think he might still be part-time anyway, but he loves EVs, and he essentially, with zero car industry experience at all, but just great people skills and a desire to help people, created an EV only dealership where they literally only sell EVs. So they're hyper specialized on those, which I think is great because you've got people working there that are going to be extremely knowledgeable about the product that you're interested in. And there was nobody, because he built it from scratch. There was none of the, well, it's always been done this way, or it's just like, no industry bad habits, right?
Not to like keep bringing it back to NADA, but I mean, the guy's not following the steps to the sale. He doesn't do everything the very prescriptive franchised way you're supposed to do. Nobody ever told him how to do that. He just looked at it from the customer perspective. Then he started filming 100%. Himself, and I don't think he spends any money on paid advertising. So Doug, tell us what you're doing right, brother, because I think if anybody who's still following along on this webinar can emulate some strategies from you, tell us how to get started, what consistency means, and any tips and tricks from your own page.
Yeah. So to get started, you just have to do it. I don't mean to oversimplify it, but don't worry so much about what your content is going to be in the beginning. You just have to get into the habit of filming and posting.
Wait, Doug, let's not start until you have a funny name, right? Should we just not start posting until you have a cool name like Ben's and Bow Ties?
Nope. You can always change your name later, right? So every excuse, every reason that you are coming up with in your head right now to delay it, just forget it, because nothing will beat getting in the routine of doing it. It's kind of like going to the gym, right? You don't have to have an expert level workout the first day you're there. You just got to get in the habit of going to the gym and doing something, and then you'll refine it as you go.
I got to get back in the gym. I think I'm getting fat. The waves have been bad here in Jacksonville. The recipe to viral content, Russ Flips Whips taught me, is clarity. That's a hook. You got to do a hook. Whether you're an executive, if you're a CEO, it's incumbent upon you to start doing content to drive good outcomes for your business. The modern CEO can't sit in the corner office and just be like really good at Excel or leadership. You have to start publishing. That could be a newsletter. That could be sharing on social media. Look at Jim Farley. I mean, Ford more and more is starting to merge with Farley's brand, especially from the corporate voice. Elon Musk, love him or hate him. His social media drives that business forward. Then credibility and collabs. I mean, I know you're not dying to collab with me, Doug, but it's probably doing a lot for me to collab with you. And then editing. So how do you edit? What do you use? I just use like CapCut. What do you use?
Yeah. So if I'm doing my own editing, I'll use CapCut. It's easy. It's didn't take me long to pick it up. I mean, I definitely am not like a high level editor, but I can get through it pretty quickly.
Right. You know what's my favorite style? If you are an executive and like you can't travel, you can't have a camera guy, maybe you can afford a camera guy, really evaluate that. We got one, we started paying, they cost a few $1,000s a month, but it's worth it. And do floating head content. So like if you're sitting, you read an article, then you can put your head over it in a green screen style, a Chris Kerner style, then that's like a very easy way to execute. So you're reacting to something that's going on behind you. And then additionally, we were at a wealth management office yesterday that specializes in a lot of high net worth divorce. And we were talking about, tell us what's going through somebody's head when they're first getting divorced. When it's so easy for them to reply, they say, well, first of all, the wife is always worried about who gets the kids. Do I get to keep the house? How do I, do I get to keep the car? Do I have to trade that in? So, you almost prompt yourself from the things, that everyday insight, that when you start espousing this on social media, that real fundamental thing to you is actually extremely insightful to everyone else. And I think if I were to encourage you to do something, you sit across from somebody while they film you and let that person prompt you with everyday questions about your business. Film it in vertical, edit in CapCut or Meta edits, and then just post it. Post every day for 60 days, Doug. TikTok, Snapchat, LinkedIn, the whole show. I don't know how you lose doing that.
No, put yourself out there. You'll be shocked at the amazing things that can come of it.
Nice. So we're waiting for this thing to transition, but Doug, how have you enjoyed relative fame? Has it ever bothered you, or do you think that it's a little intrusive? Do you get stopped on the street at all?
Yeah, it's I think it's been fun. Almost everywhere I go now, at least one person will say hello, and I think it's been nice. I feel bad that I don't have more hours in the day to respond to all the people that reach out to me and try to connect with me directly. But overall, I would say it's been mostly positive. Of course, you're never going to please everybody, and that's true of whether you're on social media or not, right? There's going to be people that just don't like you for whatever reason or don't jive with you. But getting the positive feedback when people say, hey, I love your content, or I've learned so much from watching you, or even, here's a crazy one, when people all over the country say, hey, I just got my first Mercedes-Benz because of your content, right? Like, would I have loved to have sold them that myself? Of course. But the bringing new people to the brand that I love so dearly, I never thought that would be a possibility. So I think that it's been a lot of fun, and it's brought me a lot of joy.
If you guys sell anything, here's a hack that's been working for me lately. When you call somebody and you want them to do a demo, or you want to sell them something in person, the old thing would be like, let's do lunch, let's play golf. Those things take forever. Nowadays, people want content for their business. So if you call a car dealer, you call a prospect, you call somebody and say, hey, do you want to do some content today? That's like such a nice offer, and it's worked for me a lot. When you call a car dealership and you say, hey, do you want to do some content today? Do a little bit with me, then we'll do some clips for you, and you can put those on your own social media. I think giving to people is how you get anything in life, and the offer to do content with people is the very best thing in the world. And Doug, talk about how much of a lift creating content is. And how relieved would you be if, a vendor who just calls you incessantly, what if they said, hey, dude, I'll bring in my videographer and make your life easy and send you some edited clips? Would you like that?
Oh, yeah. Look, back to the principles of persuasion I mentioned earlier, reciprocity, right? You do something nice and unexpected for people, and they will be more likely to do something nice for you in return, right? So if you're the first to give, and you give something of value, it stands to reason that you'll get back even more value in return, because people appreciate that. It's when if your hand's always out, boy, your pitch better be good, because most people are just very turned off by that nowadays.
I know. And then dressing the part. So I'm more casual than I ever been. I think it's because I had to wear a suit and tie since third grade, and I'm like allergic to it now. My whole team made fun of me yesterday because I showed up to my wife's business event wearing like a button down, and I looked like prep school all over again. So Doug, talk about dressing the part. Do you think you should always be formal or kind of match the audience or match the environment?
Yeah, I think it depends on what your environment is and what your audience is. I think there are some people that maybe don't understand why I wear a bow tie or think I look ridiculous to wear one, or the fact that I'm in a suit every day. But it's like, look, I work in a luxury car dealership. This is our dress code. So I make of it I make it my own. And
You accentuate with the bow
yeah,
tie.
exactly. So you might not appreciate it, but I can tell you that a lot of people, when they come into the dealership, they look around, they see everybody's dressed up nicely and around all these beautiful luxury cars, and they're like, all right, I like the vibe in here. That might not, if you're working somewhere that doesn't have that vibe, I wouldn't recommend showing up in a suit and bow tie.
Right. And then let's talk about leaning into your executive voices. I already got on my stump and yelled at CEOs and told them to do content. But I think that a business works really well if the sum total of everyone working there is posting on social media, driving clicks, views, impressions, and conversions. And then basically the rising tide of that displaces your need for paid advertising. There's a trend in Silicon Valley right now. You remember the BDR rule we were offered right out of college to go make $35,000 to make 200 phone calls every day to strangers. Nowadays, they're asking that role to create content. So I'm sure they're still making phone calls, but like they probably have an impressions quota to hit on content about their business. There's a young guy, Dylan Burrett, on LinkedIn. He chronicles day one of being an SDR, a cold caller, day three. I mean, he's 21 years old, first job, working for Vanta in San Francisco, posting incessantly, got a little made fun of by his buddies, and now he has CEOs of prospects commenting on his stuff. I don't like what that's the elevator to the top. If you're a young guy in business, like you just post and suddenly you're engaging with the right people. So
Totally.
talk to me, Doug, about like building the executive voice, but also getting the rising tide benefit.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's going to depend on who you are and what you're wanting to accomplish. But if you are in sort of an executive role or you're in a managerial role, I think the best thing that you can do for your organization is be authentic to what it is you're doing every day, right? If all of my content was me acting like a detailer or just a car salesperson, it would be inauthentic to what my actual day looks like. And could I pull it off? Probably. But I think that because my role in the dealership is, yes, helping put deals together, but also mentoring and helping my team through the process, that has kind of shown the light on me as an executive voice in the industry. And then when your team now gets involved, yeah, like you said, it's a rising tide lifts all boats type situation, because it's multiple people that are putting eyeballs, and they're coming from different angles, right? My content might be more serious and educational. A salesperson's might be a little bit more silly and skit based. And so you're getting different sets of people now all looking in the same direction.
Let's talk about niching down and selecting a style. So if I were to encourage somebody to get started in content, you start talking about what you know. Did you
Yep.
just spend 10 years in an industry? If you did, you should probably talk about that industry. Step one, give away all your tips and tricks. Nothing's sacred, your secret sauce. If I told everybody how I work at Freddie Media, it's a lot of work. You got to like call hundreds of people. You got to take 200 phone calls a day. You got to onboard prospects, schedule media, send reporting, talk to creators and brands. I have no problem telling you how that goes down because, buddy, you don't want to do it. You'd rather hire me to do it.
Right.
And I think that's often the conclusion people come to. But yeah, I mean, Doug, are you afraid of giving away any secret sauce through your media?
No, and probably almost to a fault, right? I understand, like you do, that what we do is hard. Sometimes it's harder than it might look when you're watching it from the outside.
Yep.
But just because you're giving somebody all the tips and tricks and the secret sauce. Most people, unfortunately, don't have the drive to go and do that themselves.
Then,
Right.
Doug, let's think about this. Niching down, you and I speak to the automotive industry, and we both kind of speak to the content industry. I read I'm in a newsletter accelerator with Nathan May. He's teaching me how to spell things right. And he said the most incredible thing last night. It was that some guy, let's talk niche B2B, some guy started a newsletter. He's up to 10,000 subscribers. The audience is people who own bouncy house businesses. That's it. The guy did $300,000 in revenue last year for bouncy house newsletter business. So I'm just inspired by some weirdo who's sitting in his basement somewhere typing up newsletters about how to operate a bouncy house business.
That's incredible. But I mean, it's not surprising because even if not, I'm sure not everybody consuming that newsletter is a bounce house business owner, but there might be a lot of people that are interested in potentially trying it.
They may just be freaks. So let's see if we have any questions from the audience. Savannah or Weston, can you post some in the comments?
Ballpark, what percentage of customers that walk through the door at your dealership are driven by social media activity versus other channels? Well, Caitlin, this is the $1 million question. It's hard to prove for sure, but I would argue that at least 30% of the people that we talk to every day are now either there specifically because of the social media or at least consuming it and aware of it. So it's a massive number.
Wow. Caitlin Frederick, no relation. Just kidding. That's my wife. Thanks for commenting. Any other questions? I have been toying with the idea of putting out contract dealing with a real estate acquisition and development. I'm 61. I'm good to camera, but I suck at computers. Well, I would say I would encourage you to follow my father-in-law, Real Doc Speaks. He was the guy, 40-year OBGYN, retired, didn't know how to golf, doesn't know how to fish. We live in Florida, doesn't do well in the heat. So he's been basically just talking about his insight over the course of his career on social media. So I think what you're stating is like explicitly, if you're 61 years old, you may be closer to retirement than Doug and I. We're both like 35. And this is like one of the most fulfilling things you can do in the later stage of your career is publishing, because you're sitting on more insight than Doug and I have. You've got more tricks. You're savvier. You know the industry better than we do. Now it's time for you to publish. You have to find the platform that you're good at. X may be the place for you. You kind of put out the short, clippy stuff. And then additionally, you may be a newsletter guy. If you're good at publishing or if you're insightful, try the long form, but don't try and like mix a newsletter onto X. That doesn't really play. And then try the short form stuff. TikTok's effectively a lottery ticket. If you're very insightful and you nail your hooks and you have your text hooks done correctly, you may crush on TikTok. Let's try one more question if we have one. Well, regardless, there's a question. Best videos that went away. Doug, did you see it? Best videos that come to my feed every day. Oh, it wasn't a question. It was
more of a comment, but hey.
It was a compliment.
Ramon, I appreciate that. And that is the kind of stuff that I will never get tired of hearing. And it makes it all worth it and fun every day to show up and do something that brings me joy and hopefully brings you all joy as well.
How do you know they were talking about you?
Well, that's a good point.
I'm
only guessing because he's on my YouTube stream.
No, I am so thankful to Doug Horner. It truly is like a great friend of mine. Doug and I met maybe 14 months ago, and I called him and said, Doug, I'd love to represent you. And you were kind of like, oh, I don't even know what that means. And we've had a blast. Doug is the best guy to work with. I really see him as the best executive in the automotive industry. Couldn't be more proud to work with Doug. And, if you want to chat directly with me, book some time on my calendar. Here's a QR code. My name's Jon Frederick. I founded Freddie Media. I'm nothing but a guy that used to be a general sales manager at a car dealership. Now I'm kind of living out my dream here at the beach in Florida, working with the best people in the world. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, John.
Thanks, Doug.